Hello, welcome to my bookshelf, and today I'll be doing another haul for you guys. This is always one of my favorite videos to do because I'm always really excited about getting new books and it's really nice to share it with you guys. So, as always, I went to Goodwill and I got a lot of great finds. So, yeah, let's just jump on in. So, these are the books that I got this month. The first of which is The Martian by Andy Weir. And I think everyone knows about this book at this point. I've heard about it for a long time. I've heard such great things about the book and the movie. They're both just supposed to be really amazing, pretty much. If you don't know, the premise of the story is that an astronaut gets stranded on Mars and he has to, use science and figure out how to survive long enough to be able to be rescued and, get back to Earth at some point. So it's kind of like a survival story out in the vast emptiness of space, far away from, anyone else. It's a really interesting premise and it's supposed to be really well done. So I'm very excited to have it in my collection and I was very happy to have found it. So the next book that I hauled is My Story by Elizabeth Smart with Chris Stewart. And I again think everyone knows about her in this book. But yeah, so if you don't know, Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped, sadly, when she was 14. She was held captive, she was chained down, this man did horrible things to her. She went through a really horrifying experience. And she obviously was able to escape. And she now is telling us and kind of reliving that so she can tell us what happened to her. Just the thought of being kidnapped and you don't even know what could happen to you is just scary to me, really scary. So to read about someone who went through that and survived is really I don't want to say exciting, but interesting for me to read about. And also, I just found this out, I got this book earlier this month, I don't know, the 1st or 2nd of November. So just this past week, I've been seeing, advertisements for I think it's a made-for-TV movie about her story, which is really interesting. I was like, this is kind of odd timing. I just bought her memoir. But anyway, so yeah, this is a very relevant book to have now, I guess. So that kind of worked out. Alright, so this next book I'm very excited about, and honestly I got because of BookTube, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I absolutely love this cover. I don't think I was ever really able to appreciate how pretty this cover was until I saw it in person. But yeah, so if you can't tell on the cover, it's raining and we're looking at the Eiffel Tower. That's what this, mark is in the background. And yeah, it's kind of blurry because we're far away, and then we have this beautiful gold with the nightingale on it and the vines or whatever it is. But yeah, so it's just really pretty. But if you don't know, this takes place in France during World War II. And we follow the story of these two sisters. And their experiences and what they go through. And that's really all I know about it because I personally try not to read too much of the synopsis because it tends to ruin the story and the suspense and just the experience of reading the book itself. So I didn't really read that much into it, but it's about World War II, it's about France, it's about these two sisters. So I'm intrigued. I've heard lots of good things about this through BookTube, so I'm excited to have found it and to now have it in my collection. Okay. This next book is also a book I heard about because of BookTube, and it's called Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, which is interesting because, the cover of the last book was in Paris, France. Anyway, moving right along, this has nothing to do with France. This is a psychological thriller, and it's one of those stories where we're following this couple and everything seems really perfect, and they're newlyweds, I guess. But of course, behind closed doors, things might not be so perfect. So yeah, it's a thriller, so I don't really know much else other than that, but I love thrillers, I love suspenseful things, so I'm really interested to find out more about this story and to read it. And again, I've heard about it on BookTube, so other people have read it. So yeah, that's kind of giving me a push to try this book, so we'll see what I think about it. But yeah, now at least I have it in my collection, so when I want to read a thriller, I have this as an option. Alright, so the next book I hauled is called Yes Chef, a memoir by Marcus Samuelson. And there he is on the back. I love when memoirs do that because you really get a sense of like, oh, this is who I'm reading about. It makes it more personal, I think. But either way, I really love the cover. The handwriting is great, especially memoir in cursive. It's really pretty. But anyway, yeah, so he's a chef. I haven't heard of him, but that's not really saying a whole lot because I just don't know about chefs, which is kind of a shame because I love food, so I would just love them so very much if I met them in person. But anyway, I don't know a whole lot about him personally, but you know, what I can get from the book so far is that he's Ethiopian, he was adopted, and he had a very troubling childhood. Like a lot of, you know, tragic things happen. And I think this is really about his experiences as a child and also kind of what like led him to love food so much and to love cooking and to become this great chef. So I'm really intrigued to find out more. Alright, so the next book that I hauled is called The String Diaries by Stephen Lloyd Jones. I have never heard of this book before, but the cover kind of grabbed my attention, and so I was intrigued to find out more. You probably can't tell, but like the cover looks like it's supposed to be like this piece of paper that's been folded a couple times and then kind of like laid out flat and like wrapped around this book. And then of course we have the snake on it too. So there's just something a little unique about it. So I was like, interesting. But yeah, and then the synopsis is like, whoa, what is going on? So apparently there's these diaries, and they contain these like rules for survival that's been passed down from generation to generation, and there's some kind of supernatural thing involved. I don't really know what it is or who it is or whatever, and I guess someone's on the run because like it says in the like little blurb that like the beginning of the book is this woman who is like driving frantically away and her husband's like bleeding in the car, and there's just kind of like, what is happening kind of moment. So I'm intrigued, and from my understanding too, I'm assuming we're reading from the diaries because we're kind of jumping, I think, from different like time periods and different places. So yeah, I'm assuming we're reading the diaries at some point and like what they're saying in their stories. So there's kind of like a lot of different stories all wrapped up into one. So I don't know, this could either be like really confusing and weird, or it could be really interesting and unique. I mean, probably also weird, but maybe in a good way instead of a bad way. I don't know. We'll have to find out, but I was intrigued, so I'm glad I found it, and yeah, I'll have to read it someday. Alright, so the next book that I hauled is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And this is also a book that I've heard of because of BookTube, and that's really why I got it. I've heard some good things about it, and yeah, all I know is that it's about a traveling circus that like suddenly appears one day, and magicians. Like, that's all I know about it. So we'll see. I really like this edition. It's got some weight to it, like even though you think that it would be like a really light book because it's the paperback version, but it kind of got some weight. And I also really like this cover because it has this flap, and I don't know, just kind of different. So yeah, The Night Circus. Alright, the next book that I hauled is called Finding Manana. This is the memoir of a family's Cuban exodus. So they're trying to go from Cuba to the United States. Because Cuba hasn't always been the greatest place from my understanding. But honestly, I don't know that much about Cuba, so I'm really excited to read more about it, which is one of many reasons why I like reading, because you get to kind of get insight into someone else's story that you would never know otherwise unless you talk to someone who went through it. So yeah, reading is awesome. And yeah, and I like learning about different cultures and different histories and just like other people in general. So, but anyway, so hopefully books like this will help like fill in those gaps. Okay, the next book that I hauled is called The Secret of Raven Point by Jennifer Vanderbeest. I also kind of enjoy this cover. But yeah, so this had an interesting premise to me. So basically, this young girl, she's 17, she gets this cryptic letter from her brother who's in the army, And then like he's reported being like missing in action soon after. And so she's very concerned, and so she decides to lie about her age, join the army, and try to like find her brother and like find out what happened and you know what's going on, which has a lot of like Mulan vibes just written all over that. You know, woman kind of lying to get into the army and to protect her family, you know, take her fate in her own hands and be super brave and, you know, things like that. So kind of has that awesome like female empowerment, I guess, if you will, just like strong female characters, which is always awesome to read about because I definitely don't feel like a strong woman, sadly. Like I feel like I could be better in this department, but I think it's really cool to read about women who are brave and do just like do what they know is right, and you know they have this like courage and ambition to do what they need to do, which I feel like I need more of at times. So it's really empowering, I guess, for me to read about some awesome female characters. The next book that I hauled is called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't really know much about this book in particular, so if you don't know, it's nonfiction. Malcolm Gladwell, he just writes like these books about like social psychology topics, and he normally gives you kind of like, he gives you an idea, he explains what it is, and it kind of like helps you apply it to your own life and obviously to help better yourself based on research and things like that. And the back of this book mentions that it's like related to business or current affairs. So I don't know if it's more on the, I'm not really sure, but maybe it's related to business tips and social psychology. I don't know, but I've heard of this author. I've read other books by him before, so I was just, you know, excited to add this one to my collection. And hopefully I can learn something cool from this. All right. And now the last book that I hauled this month is called Down with the Rain by Brooke Shields. And this is her memoir, specifically about her journey through postpartum depression. If you don't know, I love psychology, and I am going to grad school right now to become a counselor. So this is obviously a topic very near and dear to my heart, and I'm really interested to read someone's like personal account of what postpartum depression was like for her. Obviously, everyone's experience is always different and unique, just in general, but also like experiencing specific, you know, like mental disorders that we found in the DSM. Always going to be a unique experience, right? But I think it's really important to read about like what it is like for each individual person, because there's always some similarities across it. And, you know, if you haven't gone through it, you really don't know what it's like. And so I think it's really important to read about people who actually have gone through it, because that's honestly the only way that you're even going to get like some kind of glimmer of understanding of what it's like. Yeah, so this is a memoir, like I said. Brooke Shields, like I know she's an actress, but honestly for me, like the selling point is that this book is about her experience with postpartum depression and not necessarily like her life as an actress, because I don't think it's going to be about that at all. I think it's just going to be about her like personal experience dealing with something that a lot of women actually do go through, but I don't think it's something that's always talked about, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it, and so I'm really intrigued to see what she has to say about it. Alright, so those are the books that I got during the month of November. I'm always just so excited to just get new books to my collection because I love books so much, as you can tell. And yeah, so it's always really fun to have more options as far as books to read in the future, because I pretty much exclusively just read books that I own, because like 95% of the books are books I haven't read yet that I own. I need to work on that. I'm getting there slowly. But either way, as always, I just want to thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time.